Recently, I got invited to an early screening of the Battlefield 2042 Exodus short film. If you missed it, we are going to watch it again in a moment, and afterwards I'll be sharing some exclusive information from the developers themselves. So sit back, relax, you don't want to miss this one, and enjoy.
The firestorms began in central Latvia.
50% of global shipping ports threatening food supply.
Mass migration has reached a fever. This is clearly the greatest refugee crisis in human history.
The downed satellites have caused a global blackout of communications
And navigation systems.
Both Russia and the US claim the other is responsible for the
Layers of the atom. Russia are both being accused of fielding armed no-pads in an escalating
Nopads, as these non-patrioted call themselves.
Have become one of the world's largest factions, fighting not for country, but for survival.
I'm at the drop.
Good. The informant has arrived.
Fuck! Ambush.
That briefcase is our ace card. Do not fail us, Captain.
Usually I know what I'm risking my neck for.
Usually, I don't explain myself.
Shit. There you are.
No.
Irish, you traitor. How much do the no-pats pay you to fuck over your own country?
My loyalty is with the refugees on this boat. That includes you now.
Irish, Oz is better 20 clicks out. I think you better take a look at something.
Listen, if you give Oz that case, that fucking terrorist will start World War III.
That's what they always say, Pac. Believe that shit if you want to. But I know what I'm fighting for.
Dad! You came back.
Always, big man. Hey, I got something for you.
Who's that?
Nobody. Head back downstairs now. Put that back, Ra. We don't get paid to interfere.
I know, but this is too big to ignore. America's got an experimental weapon that's about to fall out of the sky at these coordinates in 36 hours. They're desperate to recover their dirty little secret. If Russia gets it first, it could spark a war.
Fuck. We can't let that maniac get his hands on the coordinates. Pekowski was right.
Oz's men will be here any second. He will stop at nothing to get what he wants. We have civilians on board. We don't have enough manpower. I don't think we have a choice.
Head straight into that storm.
That's a Category 5, sir.
Nah, that's home field advantage.
Shit. I think they sensed the deal's off.
You have the control. Oz ain't taking this boat.
Irish, the storm is gonna kill us!
This storm's a fucking Calvary!
I'm disappointed in you, Irish. I thought we were on the same team.
Stop! Let me go!
Oz!
Dad!
Tell him to get his fucking hands off of my son!
You know who the Ronin were, Irish. They were warriors with no country, no cause. That's how they see us. The wild ones who forget we exist. Give us the intel and we will force them to see.
You start this war, millions of nopads will die in the crossfire.
The price we pay for a new world.
No!
History will remember this, Irish.
And so will I.
Only one way to stop this war. And that's to get in the middle of it. Put a call out to any notepad who will listen.
36 hours to door. Get ready to fight!
So, Battlefield 4's Irish is back, and did we just hear? The firestorms began? Battlefield 2042 Battle Royale confirmed? Who knows, but one thing we do know, BF4 characters are back. Well, one is alive at least. Sergeant Clayton Pack Pakowski, not so much. In 2042, Kimball Irish Graves is one of the prominent leaders of the multi-faction Nopats, and also a playable specialist. Played once again by the awesome actor Michael K. Williams, whom you may have seen in the fantastic TV series The Wire, and of course Boardwalk Empire. In Battlefield 2042, Irish finds himself at a crossroads with the mysterious Oz, another leader amongst the Nopats. Irish, a former Marine turned NOPAT commander, wishes to tend to his people and keep them out of the wars fought by the superpowers of the world, fighting for the acceptance of NOPATs, while Oz stokes the flames of war, believing that the old world must burn for the new one to be born, no matter the cost. The split between these two factions is the core driving factor behind the narrative in Battlefield 2042. As the leader of one of the groups of NOPATs, Irish gives commands and expects them to be followed without question. A man hardened by great loss, who chooses to pay respect to the fallen by using his skills to provide for those who cannot provide for themselves. In-game, he is an engineer class. His specialty is the fortification system. His specialty allows him to place two separate items into the world, the DCS deployable cover and the APS-36 shoot-down sentinel. It appears you can actually spot him in the original gameplay trailer for 2042. The DCS deployable cover can be placed on nearly any flat surface, creating a small protective barrier that allows your allies to see through its bulletproof glass. The barrier itself protects anyone behind it until its health pool is depleted. As Irish, you can place multiple covers on a map, perhaps hinting that other characters will be able to just use one of these. Using multiple covers, you're able to create your own little outpost out there on the battlefield. Potentially, you could squad up with Boris and his SG-36 sentry gun for a cool DIY castle-like fort. His APS-36 shoot-down sentinel is a rocket's worst nightmare. Placed on any flat surface, it immediately eliminates incoming explosive projectiles within proximity, grenades, rockets, etc., into a puff of smoke. Placing this APS-36 next to a vehicle will give it automatic protection from incoming missiles. The system can, however, be taken out of action by an EMP or savvy hack attack. Irish's veteran trait will always spawn him in with a small amount of body armor that can be replenished whenever he collects dropped ammo packs from defeated foes. This specialist clearly then will suit the more aggressive-minded players. That extra armor will prove vital in busy areas, especially when there's 128 players on the map. It will be interesting to see how much that armor actually helps, and the balance concerns no doubt many of you may have. To celebrate the return of Irish, DICE are adding his exclusive battle-hardened legendary skin for those who pre-order. This can be seen here and in the short film Exodus. Before we jump into information from the developers themselves, let's take a quick look at the story so far and expand upon the events taking place before the short film. DICE have been keen in Battlefield 2042 with telling you stories in a new way for the franchise. We've seen much of that through the build-up to the short film via the journey of the NOPATs, a multi-chapter narrative piece written by journalist Kayvan Bashir about his experiences while traveling with the NOPATs, as well as several specialists, while the world's nations fought scarce resources, greed, and violent climate change. Alongside answering questions about the NOPAT's fight for survival and how they operate, this piece takes readers on a journey through a series of locations across Battlefield 2042. Why is Doha drowning in sand? Bashir lays out the hard facts of the city's failure to fend off desertification and the suffering of its people, bankruptcy, famine, and political strife, all culminating in a cataclysmic sandstorm assaulting an unprepared metropolis. At the same time, you're waging war in the city streets. If you want to know more about what Doha and the other locations you'll be fighting across in Battlefield 2042, be sure to read The Journey of the NOPATs. DICE does say the world of 2042 will play a vital role in how they tell the story, and it's one they plan on unraveling over time. You'll learn more about the world through the eyes of these specialists that you play as. Each one has their own story that connects them to an ongoing narrative, and to the world itself. Discoveries you make in this game will also expand upon the narrative, while stories that exist outside of the game itself will aid you in piecing together the pieces that make up the world of 2042. As you make your way through the maps, you may from time to time hear broadcasts from the American United News Network, and at other times it will be the same story, but from the Russians' perspective. Each of these DICE says aims to give you something to reflect upon and will help to give context to the events that are unfolding within the world they are creating. Apparently, different specialist characters will interact in various ways throughout the game, revealing more as time goes on. It will be interesting to see how all of these play out, and if there may be anything said connected to any potential Easter egg hunts later down the line. DICE are dedicated to building an emerging world for the player to experience. All of these in-game elements, they say, will help push the story forward and play a part in building the puzzle that is the world of 2042. Look beyond the boundaries of the game and you will find even more of those puzzle pieces. Intriguing. Where could they be? Along your journey, you'll notice signs and logos on buildings and vehicles from some of the organizations and businesses created for this world. Some of these will be present in multiple maps. Within Hourglass, for example, logos of Sinsaco can be seen, an agricultural company based out of Egypt, featuring heavily on renewal. Only time will help us understand the reasoning for their presence in Hourglass. Other organizations include Daysong Electronic and Forsec, a private security company whose growth increased rapidly as the world plunged into turmoil. I say, some are quick to point out they have the backing of numerous wealthy private investors, while American media outlets would likely call out their close ties to Russia. These are just a few of the fictional organizations you will encounter in the world of 2042, many being specific to various maps and geographical locations. I do wonder if we will see Solace return from Battlefield 5's Firestorm. The opening line to this little short film here kind of gives the impression, maybe, what does that mean? What does Firestorm mean in that little short film there? What's the context behind that? I'd love to know more. Now, we are going to jump straight into some information from developers here, but I do just want to say, this short film, I feel like there's just enough information here that keeps me wanting for more. Perhaps it could have been longer, perhaps there could have been more, but for now, I'm happy with this. It looks good. I'm glad there's some Battlefield 4 characters coming back. I like how it's in the same universe. There is some interesting things going on here, especially if you try to read in between the lines. I am excited. The locations here look good. It all looks beautiful. These new screenshots, it all looks amazing. I cannot wait for the beta to drop and for people to really see the game. Anyway, next up, let's go into the information straight from the devs, the narrative team to be exact, which includes Justin Langley, a narrative designer at DICE, Michael Hartin, also a narrative designer, Eric Holmes, the world director on the game, and Ben Walker, a producer who closely works with these guys at DICE. Some interesting stuff here, and rather than cut this all up, sit back and relax. There is a lot of stuff that's being said here. Enjoy. Alright, the first question that we saw was, how did you start writing the narrative for Battlefield 2042? This is straight from Langley. We started with the central theme of adaptation in the face of crisis. It happens on a small scale in every match, but it can also happen in big ways too, ways that occur on a global level. We knew we wanted it to be in the future, but it also had to feel realistic and grounded, which is why we ended up in the near future. Once a time frame was chosen, we began to look at the state of the world today. We started looking for things which seemed interesting to us and began to expand upon them, always asking ourselves, where would that thing be in 10, 15, 20 years time? Once we hit that point, we then started diving into the ideas of certain kinds of events. If they continued, how would that change the world? We explored different avenues of how we wanted to approach that and what kind of things we wanted to do. What we found is that one event in the world, it's a crisis, you only see it on the news for a few weeks. But when it's multiple events happening all at once, everything becomes chaotic. It's that chaos which creates a fun sandbox to play in and pull from. It gave us a lot of opportunities to make the world of 2042 feel like it was changing, maybe for the better, or in some cases, for the worse. One thing that is interesting to us is how one event can seem completely different when filtered through three entirely different perspectives. In the game we have specialists, and they all come from varying backgrounds. Although they're all aware of these events, some have different perspectives, and some of those perspectives might differ, and there might be some conversation about that in the game as well. I think it's important you get a lot of different voices on the ideas of these cataclysmic events, because it's so easy to get locked into a singular, superficial perspective. One of these things we're trying to show here is that a broad spectrum of people are affected by the events in game, and particularly with the NOPATs and the NOPAT task force you'll be playing as. It's about bringing these perspectives together and kind of unifying them to do something about it. And I think that's a powerful message. Straight from Hartin, he says, one of the interesting challenges was to go with the idea that the in-game outlets don't have to tell the truth. There is obviously a conflict between the United States and Russia, but neither side has to tell you the truth about it. If they want you to align with their point of view, they are definitely going to hide things that they don't want you to know about. So there's texture there that I find interesting. Next, Home replies, I think we are in a world right now where the media has never been more confusing in a global sense. Our sense of reality is diminished and there's a cacophony of voices and people finding their own truth. I think the real kind of genius of Michael's work is that it lets you be in a vivid version of this game world. You can subscribe to different perspectives while you're sharing a reality with other players because you're on the ground seeing what's happening. Langley responds, exactly. That's the most exciting part to me because you'll hear those outlets talking about something and you'll be able to look around, see what's going on and say, that's not what's happening at all. That's the perspective they're giving the general public, who isn't there as an eyewitness like the player, which is a good allegory for a lot of military conflicts in the real world. That element just gives this sort of a touchstone of reality. Next, Hartin adds to this. For example, we have the perspectives of the Americans, the perspective of the Russians, and then we also have a conspiracy outlet that has their own sort of fun perspective on everything. It's a really different and fun way of storytelling since it's all built into the level. You'll find the narrative if you want to find it. If you're less inclined to do that, you'll just shoot the enemy team and move on. We try to build the story in a discoverable sense, so if you're walking around the map, maybe keep your eyes and ears on alert for some visual and audio cues. Next, the team was asked what goes into building out the lore of a location and infusing it into the map. Langley responds first with, that can be determined by what kind of map it is and how big it is. If you're doing something in a dense city, you really got to start digging for all those little road signs and shops. Everything in a city tells a story. Hartin. Yeah, exactly. The cities are some of the hardest ones. For example, on Hourglass, you have the stadium, which has advertisements for events that never happened due to the city's evacuation, like a soccer tournament coming up, a band performing, and so on. You need that to create a sense of immersion and reality. Walker responds, it's definitely a task you don't finish in one go either. We can't say, okay, we start today and within 3 months we've done it all. A lot of the work continues to evolve over the production timeline of the map. And finally, Langley responds, and when it comes to sculpting characters and their backstories, we want to make sure these characters fit into the wider narrative, but also in the minute-to-minute story. Michael and I take the elements and work together to make sure there's some cross-pollination occurring. The end result is one where characters of the world don't feel like they're from a completely different world than the one they're going to be fighting in. They belong here. It's a lot of fun. Next, the devs are asked about how do you go about building new characters. Langley says, once we have a character designed to work with, the next step is to ensure that the character fits into the world. We'll take a look at the timeline of events that we put together and see if there are any natural points that pair up nicely with the new character. Some of these events are the ones you'll see in game, others you might not. While some might appear later in the game's life, our timeline is a narrative roadmap that we utilize to ensure that things fit authentically. We then start to consider the other characters we already have in the game. It's also important that not only does any new character fit within the world, but they also need to have a good dynamic with our existing characters. Everyone is different in the world, and we want to make sure we represent that aspect with different perspectives and personalities. Some people are aggressive, some people are friendly, some are optimistic, others pessimistic. We want to create this broad range of characters that can play with one another in a dynamic way. Once these pieces start coming together, we then begin to work at a more granular level on the character. What kind of personality do they have? We'll start diving into their background, their histories, the country they're from, their age. It ends up being a long time in spreadsheets and Word documents trying to map everything together. It's important for us that any of our characters don't end up feeling like a stereotype. If anything, we try to break that stereotype where we can. We're We're just trying to make the strongest character possible, and then presenting that in an interesting way. Walker adds to that and says, as an example, going back to the reactions from players first learning about the specialist Navin Rao, seeing the validation from players from India or with an Indian background, letting us know we've done this character justice and we're not just leaning on stereotype, it validates getting these characters right and the importance of it. My apologies if I just pronounced that incorrectly there, I'm not sure of the pronunciation. 2 more questions to go. First one is, what are you most excited about for players to experience in this world? First up was Langley, and he said, one of the things I think is the most fun is that because this takes place in a fictional future, I'm excited to see players explore that idea of what if, and that they get to experience that. It was really fun to create that kind of fantasy for them to play in. I really hope they look at the map and wonder about the story behind it, the reality behind it. That what if factor is something I love to invoke in our players. Harting goes on to say, there are 7 locations at launch, but it's a massive world that we are in, with possibilities in every single location. My hope is that we capture our players' imagination and they say, what's happening at X or Y? Because obviously we've thought a ton about what's happening inside the world, but I'd love to see more requests like, show us what's happening at this location, and then having the chance to do that is what I'm most excited about. Holmes goes on to say, it's about creating a world with possibilities that you haven't seen before. We have a blank page. We still want to have all the same value of previous Battlefield games, immersion and believability, but as a part of answering what we want on that page, we can surprise people in a new way. This world, this setting, what we've got going on in 2042 with our environments and characters lets us do things you haven't seen before, and that's exciting. And lastly, Walker says, for me it's going to be really exciting to see how players start to pull all our interconnected threads together as they play their game. I've always thought the best stories and at least the best worlds are those that leave a little hidden behind the curtain. I like that we're not coming out and seeing everything. You're not going to load up the website and see a full wiki breakdown of the world. Although I'm confident someone out there in the community is already working on this. And finally, one last question with only Walker responding. As a narrative team, is there anything you'd like to say to the community? CT when, or would that be BB when? In all serious though, we've seen the reactions within the community so far, and the entire team has been blown away by them. Launch is getting ever closer, and we can't wait to step onto the battlefield with you all. From a narrative point of view, we're incredibly excited to be telling the story of our world in 2042, the setting, characters, and everything in between. We hope you enjoy it, and keep the memes coming, especially the memes. Again, interesting information there, lots to read between the lines here. It seems there could be many interesting ways the story unfolds in 2042. It will be fun to see how DICE use gameplay elements as part of that. Hopefully it's new, fresh, and ever evolving. Looking very promising, DICE. All you have to do now, in my opinion, is just deliver a good game. I believe you can do it. Anyway, this sounds very much like a next-gen title. Cannot wait. Appreciate you guys checking out this video today. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the battlefield very soon. Catch you later.